Uh, Welcome everyone. Welcome to the fourth and the final week of the Lambrusco month. We're tasting this guy. We're wrapping it up with this. Um, 2019 Fiorini. Is this actually 2019? I have it written down as 2019, but is this actually 2019? It is. 2019 Fiorini Terre Lambrusco Grasperosa di Castelvetro DOP is what we're tasting today. This should be your last bottle. In case you're wondering, yes, I am joining you from a hotel room in St. Paul right now. So yeah, excuse the lighting or lack of lighting back there. A few announcements. The all the enrollment has been wrapped up for next month. And in case you haven't heard, next month is going to be what I call a non-binary box in celebration of a Pride Month. I am putting together a box called non-binary box. So these are all the weird co-ferments and different rosé-ish kind of wines that blur the categorical lines between is this red, is this white, is this rosé, does it matter, that kind of stuff. So yeah, we're gonna be tasting a bunch of quote unquote weird wines next month. So yeah, that's what's coming next month. And next Tuesday is the pickup day. So yeah, if you are not picking up next Tuesday, then coordinate with your wine captains and let them know. And if you're getting it delivered, Tony will be out next Tuesday delivering your wines. So yeah, expect that to happen. But that's all the announcement I got. And this month, we're donating 1% of records revenue to Meals on Wheels. So yeah, if you want to donate alongside 64 White Coat, the link is right there. If you want to learn more about what they do, the link is right there as well in the chat box. Any questions about any of that, about next month or whatnot, what's happening before we get into the wine? Cool. In case you're just joining us now, this is the last bottle of the month. We're wrapping it all up with this guy. 2019 Fiorini, Poteri Fiorini, Terre al Sol, Lambrusco Grasperosa di Castelvetro, DOP is what we're tasting today. This is the same producer that we featured last week. And if you joined us last week, there's quite a few points that I have asked you all to kind of make sensory memories of the wine that we're tasting last week, because we're basically essentially tasting the same producer, same grape variety. The difference is obviously this is 2019, last week is 2022. The difference being obviously vintage, but even more than that, we're talking about essentially different site selection, older vintage, older vines, longer extraction, and then the method of the wine, how it's made. The last week was all Charmat method. And we talked about the bubbles that are coming up. That should be the first thing you probably should have noticed is the amount of kind of bubbles that are popping off as soon as you pour. Last week versus this week. Last week talked a lot about the kind of aggressive foam, almost like beer, that kind of left this like a layer of foam on top, that like a pinkish, purplish foam. But this week I'm seeing a lot less of it in my wine. I don't know if yours is doing the same thing, but way less. Yeah, so the bubbles are a lot more dissolved and integrated into the wine as opposed to last week. And that's all function of this going through a traditional method. So second fermentation happening inside the bottle, as opposed to going through a Charmat method where it happens in a tank and then it's just getting bottled and sold out, which was last week. So yeah, we're tasting the same producer, essentially the same wine variety, but they're two complete different wines. And especially when you get tasting it, and if you taste it already, you will know how different this is from last week. And that's all intentional. I just want to kind of give you a sense of how different, what a range, even within the same grape variety, that Lambrusco can have, because not all Grasperosa is created equal. So here we are. Anyways, let's start with the math. So here we are. Here is Italy. We have been here the entire month, Emilia Romagna, right? Some review for most of you, which is Emilia-Romagna is divided into kind of two different regions. So Emilia and Romagna. Emilia being the more of the northern part, Bologna kind of being the divide line between the two. So Emilia being the north, Romagna being the south. When we think of Lambrusco, even though it's not exclusive to Emilia-Romagna, it is being made, grown, the grape variety, the Lambrusco varieties are grown in other parts of Italy, particularly here Lombardy, which is this part right here, Lombardia, next to Piedmont. They grow some Lambrusco varieties here. But really, when we talk about Lambrusco, we're talking about Emilia-Romagna, majority of it comes from here. And that's all being farmed on the northern part. Parma, Modena, these are all kind of the parts where all the delicious things that we think of Italian food comes from here, right? Parmesan comes from here, prosciutto, balsamic vinegar, all of those things, bolognese, all those things basically come from this region. So the northern half being the Emilia part that produces the sparkling Lambrusco varieties. And then on the south, which is the Romagna part, this is a lot more rustic. So the north is, even though there's a lot more farmland and a lot of really delicious agricultural products being made here, because the land here, the soil here is really fertile because of this Po River, which runs through from Piedmont and dumps out all the way onto what is this? So what is the sea on the right where the Balkans come in?
Adriatic.
Adriatic, thank you. Yes. Po River that dumps out into the Adriatic Sea. So the south of the Po, the land here is really fertile. So a lot of agricultural products, a lot of dairy production, all of it happens. And it's part of the reason why all the delicious things that we think about Italy comes from this right here in the northern part, the Emilia portion of Emilia-Romagna. And the Romagna portion becomes a lot more hilly, a lot more rustic, a lot more forest. And then this is where the still wine comes from. So there's a Sangiovese, there's Trebbiano, there's other still wines being made here. But that's not the focus of this month's. I just really wanted to focus more on Lambrusco and kind of show the diverse range of the styles that you can see in Lambrusco. But that's not to say you should sleep on particularly Sangiovese. Trebbiano, I mean, there are other Trebbiano being made in other parts that are I don't know. To me, Trebbiano is kind of a uncharacterful, kind of a cousin of a Chardonnay, very neutral. But Sangiovese here is notably different. It's a very characterfully different from the Sangiovese you're going to find in Tuscany. So that's a kind of a cool things to taste side by side between the Tuscan Sangiovese versus Romagna Sangiovese. So something to try if you are so inclined to do so. But yeah, so basically this is what we've spent this whole month on, but really we've focused on the northern half here. Grasparosa di Castelvetro, it is a DOP, so appellation. It's a 13 communes just south of Modena. So we're talking about, I don't have a separate map that kind of shows different Lambrusco AOPs or DOPs, but it's just off south of Modena. So anytime you get Grasparosa, most likely this is where you're going to find it. As you get more north and then get into Parma and more north and west, you're going to find the grape variety like Sorbara, which is the one that we tasted the first month or first week, which is the highest acid, more kind of delicate, a little more aromatic. So that's where we are. And then you find between Parma and Modena, you find that Salamino that we tasted second week. And then really now in the southern or surrounding Modena, this is where you're going to find Grasparosa, which is the most powerful, burly, kind of a tannic and all of that, and which what we are going to taste today. So, and again, this is kind of a review of a lot of things we did last week, just because, you know, it's the same producer. But yeah, these are the people who produce this wine. So Fiorini, this is the Fiorini family. They were established in 1919. They've managed this to stay for 4 generations. So we're talking about 4th generation here. This is not a husband and wife team. This is a brother and a sister team. So Alberto on the right, Cristina on the left. It's a brother and sister team, 4th generation of the Fiorini family. that have been making essentially Lambrusco for last, I don't know, 100+ years. So they know a thing or two about. They do kind of serve as a kind of reference point producer for Lambrusco, at least definitely for Lambrusco Grassporosa, which is what they make quite a bit. They farm 12 hectares of organic southeast-facing vineyards on the last strip of Bologna Hills, all worked by hand and manually harvested. They have 3 different vineyards planted different soil, different vine age, and different Lambrusco varieties. So good producer to kind of taste through Lambrusco varieties to kind of see the stylistic difference between all of them. This is what the property looks like on top of the Bologna Hill. And then this is the overall picture of their kind of vineyards around the property. But this particular vineyard is where the vines come from for this particular bottle that we're tasting today. So again, as you can see, a lot of trees around. So we're up in the hills, kind of up above in the elevation. But they get a lot of sun. This is a southeast-facing vineyard. Hence the name Terre al Sol, which means land of sun in Italian. But yeah, this is where the fruit for this wine comes from. I have not gotten a confirmation that their balsamic vinegar is available, but if they're available, I'll make it available in Case Club. But you guys should check out their balsamic vinegar. They have a 12-year aged and 25-year aged balsamic vinegar that is fantastic. But yeah, have not gotten a confirmation that it will be available come Case Club time. Anyways, that's what we were talking about. So what is this wine? This is 100% Grassporosa. It's organically farmed. This particular vineyard is organically farmed, but it's not certified. The vineyard where the last week's fruit came from, it's a certified organic vineyard. But this one is not certified, but they do farm it organically. Spontaneous fermentation, indigenous yeast, all the things we talk about in natural wine world. But the difference from here, from last week, is that last week was a Charmat method. Tank method, the same method that Prosecco is made from. So, you make the base wine and then you throw it in a tank and then you do the second fermentation inside the tank. And as soon as that fermentation is done, there's nowhere for CO2 to go, it gets dissolved into the wine, then it gets bottled and sold off, right? And this time, they're doing a traditional method, just like a champagne method, essentially. So the second fermentation, they make the first fermentation, they put the wine inside this exact same bottle that we're drinking from, and then they throw the reserve must from the harvest. So they're not throwing yeast and sugar in it, but they actually freeze off some of the original must, the sweet grape juice, essentially, that were pressed off. And then they throw it in here to restart the second fermentation inside this bottle. And then they go through not the same amount of time that the champagne goes through, but the second fermentation, they happen here. They wait until it's fermented completely out dry, and then they disgorge and they sell it off. That's essentially what this is. And that's why the bubbles here are much finer. Even on the surface, kind of looking at it, like you can see how much smaller these kind of bubbles are compared to what it was last week. So yeah, just give you a stylistic difference between Charmat method and a traditional method. We talked about Grassporosa for a little bit last week, but again, this is like the more robust. It's the most robust of the Lambrusco varieties, so much darker in fruit quality. This one particularly, like you're going to see it, you get a lot more like that violet, kind of plummy, black cherry, that kind of stuff. Much fuller bodied, oftentimes a little bit higher alcohol, even though Fiorini tends to keep their alcohol restrained and pulled back, which is what I appreciate about them. But oftentimes you'll find Grassporosa to be higher alcohol than Sorbara or Palomino. And then it is the most tannic of the Lambrusco varieties. And this is definitely the most tannic out of all the 4 bottles that we tasted this month. So yeah, this is kind of quote unquote most serious. This is the most inky, most extracted, most tannic, probably most complex, definitely most complex as well. There's a lot more layers here. It's not just a fruit. There's a lot more kind of a herbaceous quality here, if you ask me. There's some of the phenolic bitterness that you get from tannin, but all those things. So yeah, just that kind of contrast between last week and this week to show that not all Lambrusco is created equal. If you are drinking this without any kind of food, I would highly recommend that you get some cheese or salami or some sort of a protein-rich things because yeah, this can be a lot on its own. Like I will not recommend that you drink this just on its own, just by the glass on the porch. But I don't know. I mean, you be your own judge. If you like it, then drink it. But to me, this wine just makes so much more sense with some sort of food as opposed to without it. So, uh, yeah, that was quite quick. But again, it's the same producer. So, any questions about anything that I just went over before we taste it? Excellent. Well, let's taste it. And hopefully there's some dramatic difference that you're tasting from last week to this week. Who wants to take the appearance?
I want to do the nose, but I'll do the appearance too.
Oh, damn. You take two? All right. Fucking overachiever. All right.
I'm studying.
Dig it. All right, let's do it.
Okay. This wine is clear.
This one is clear.
I
I
think
mean, I mean, honestly, I can't tell if this is clear or not, but it's quite dark.
yeah, I mean, it doesn't look hazy or
Yeah,
anything, but yeah, it's very dark.
yeah,
I would say this is deep
yeah.
ruby,
Me
but
too.
okay.
Oh, I would
'Cause
at least say this is deep.
yeah, I'm on the fence with the ruby. I'm actually drinking it side by side with last week's
Uh-huh.
wine, and last
Uh-huh.
week's is so purple.
Yeah.
Um, this one's got a little more red to it.
Agreed. I would say this is a little more ruby than last week. I think last week had a lot more that bluish, purplish kind of a thing going on. Um, but I still do see some of that like a purple. I don't know. I always see little purple with the Grasparosa. But I agree. Last week was even more so than this week. But I 100% agree with your assessment that this is deep because I can't see shit through the
Yeah,
middle. Yeah.
it's dark.
So it's deep. Deep ruby with a purplish, I don't know, streak. You want to call it that?
Yeah,
Purplish ruby.
purple.
Yeah. Any other observations?
My bubbles went away pretty quickly. Um, 1 second, Maddie. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay. My bubbles went away visibly. So I would say they're very fine, if not non-existent. But then tasting it, you can still feel them.
Yep. Exactly. So especially if you're tasting this side by side from last week, like your last
Very.
week's glass probably still has bubbles like
Yeah.
layer of foam on top, right?
Yeah. It's
But
been sitting for an hour and it still has a layer of bubbles.
yeah, and then this one clearly there's none of that. It's a lot more dissolved into the wine. If this was probably not as deep, probably see little bubbles popping up. But yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. So good observation on the kind of the appearance of the bubbles. Excellent. All right, take us through the nose.
All right. This wine smells clean.
Smells clean. Smells sound. Intensity.
I would say medium intensity, but I do have a stuffy nose. I wouldn't be surprised if this was medium plus.
Yeah, I'm smelling it like here, and my
Okay.
gun is quite cold. So I would call this medium plus myself.
Okay. Um,
Aromas of, what is that?
there's a lot going on here.
Quite a bit, yeah?
Okay, I'll start at the top. I do smell some sort of floral note. I don't know what that would be.
Yeah.
If I had to write something down, I would say rose or violet.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, to me, this is more like a violet, bluish flower kind of a thing. here, but yeah, definitely like some sort of floral element here for sure. Yeah.
And I don't get any green fruit or citrus, no
Mhm.
stone fruit or tropical. Um, I'm mostly smelling black cherry, black currant from
Mhm.
the black fruit.
Yeah.
Um, maybe blackberry too.
Hmm. Yeah,
I'm not,
that's sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say I'm not really getting any red fruit. I think the black fruit is so prominent.
Yeah, so that's what I wanted to point out. Again, compares to, I mean, you have the wine side by side. For those of you who don't have it, but if you remember from last week, we had some red fruit thrown in with last week's wine. And this week, to me, this is just noticeably blacker, like noticeably darker, like Shannon said. Like I get a lot more black fruit than I get red fruit. Everything you call it, like black cherry, that blackberry, blackcurrant, even a little plum, like all this stuff is exactly what you would expect from these kind of like really extracted, powerful Grasparosa. Last week, which is much younger vine, less extraction, so you get a little more red fruit. But yeah, like totally, this is all about black fruit here for sure.
Yeah, and it smells, I mean, it smells like fresh and ripe. But I am getting a weird, I don't want to skip over too much, but is there oak on this?
There's no oak as far as I know. I try to really cut down the the tech on this thing, but like I couldn't really get it. But unless they fermented, if they fermented in oak barrel, it would be a neutral barrel for sure. But the secondary was all happening inside the bottle. Before that, whether they fermented in a barrel or in a tank, I'm not sure. But my guess here would be that they probably did not do it in oak, but I
I
could be
would be surprised, but I'm getting
wrong.
this weird like chocolate powder, cocoa powder.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you're saying because I get that with this thing too. But I think it's just more of the vine age, the complexity from the vine age than it is from
Okay.
the barrel itself. To me, it doesn't express more like a barrel age. To me, this is just just old vines, like something
Okay.
when you get really like old vines, you get these kind of things. So
Yeah, it's like dusty chocolate.
yeah, I think that like cocoa powder kind of thing is a
Yeah,
good
yeah.
call on it. Yeah.
I'm also getting some sort of herbal, like dried
Mhm.
herbs.
Yep.
Um, not
Yep.
quite medicinal like last week's.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
maybe
To
some licorice,
to
but
me,
that
that was what struck me about this wine is the savoriness that ran through this, which is that kind of like dry herbs, but also like I guess some like fresh green too, not like a piercing green pepper green, but just more of just the kind of the vegetal portion of the grapevine itself. There's just like the kind of the plant portion of it, not just the fruit portion of it. But there's something that is savory here, but that dry kind of oregano, dry thyme, almost like a Gary,
oregano, yeah.
yeah, thing is I think is an excellent call because yeah, there's definitely some savory character to this thing.
Yeah, I'm not really getting any spice or anything.
Yeah,
Um,
and that's why honestly, if I was getting more of that kind of like baking spice, even coriander or getting cinnamon and things like that, I'd probably been like, yeah, maybe there's some little bit of wood on here. But to me, it's not that. Like the savory character of this thing is not the spice. It's more
yeah.
of that kind of dried herbs, the kind of vegetal plant side of the like I'll be willing I don't know this for sure, but if I had to take a guess, I would say this was probably whole cluster, no stem removal. And during the extraction, it wasn't just the skins. It was there were actually
Um,
erosion on here. That's where that kind of some of that savory, spicy kind of character comes from. It'd be
Okay.
my guess,
Yeah.
but without confirming it. But yes. All right. So did you say anything about spice or minerality or anything like that?
I don't really get anything that stands out. I mean, now that I'm thinking about it, maybe pepper,
Okay.
like black or white pepper,
Yeah.
but it's not very prevalent to me right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. You get like like a little bit of a spice, like a peppery kind of a thing, for sure.
Yeah.
Any secondary?
No, I mean, other than the chocolate, but yeah, I don't think it's from the oak, like you said.
Yeah. I mean, you could be right. This could be done. I don't know for sure. I'll be hard pressed to think that this was fermented in barrels, but you know that it's pretty rare to see Lambrusco base wine being fermented in barrel, but it could be done. I just couldn't find any information. So
Yeah.
but yeah. So not secondary, any tertiary?
I mean, I get that savory smell.
Yeah.
Maybe a
There's
little
some
earthy too.
Yeah, there's some level of like dry things here. Like not everything's like completely fresh. There's a little bit like a dry character here for me. Dried herbs, even the fruit is not all completely fully fresh and ripe. I mean, it's mostly fresh and ripe, but like there's a little touch of like a drying out. There's a lot of like a drying out sensation that's happening here with this wine. But yeah. Okay. Anything else on the nose?
I don't think so.
All right. Excellent. Good job. You got to pick the next person for the palette.
All right. Does anybody want to volunteer? Okay. Dave T, you were next on my list.
I'm trying to learn how to unmute. All right. Hey, everybody.
What's up, Dave?
This wine is bone dry.
Bone dry. Holy shit, that's dry. Yeah, bone dry.
I don't get any acidity, but I could be wrong.
You don't get any acidity?
Not really. A lot of tannin.
Mm.
I cheated and looked what the alcohol was, but it tastes like a 13.5.
I'll call this about medium acid. It's not super ripping high, but yeah, call this about medium. There's some medium acidity here. It's not like a Viognier level, like
No.
you know, Marsan Roussan level. I mean, Marsan Roussan can.
By the tiny little bubbles as well.
Yeah, there's some acid here. Tannin. What would you think about tannin here?
Medium
Tell us
plus.
about more tannin here.
Definitely medium plus.
Yeah, I mean, so we talked a lot about tannin last week. Some people thought last week's wine had some tannin. I mean, if you remember that, like, see how this feels. Like, just move it around. Just like wash your teeth. I mean, this is a wine where you're gonna have to brush your teeth after drinking it. Like, it will stain your teeth. Like there's just so much extraction here. So yeah, move it around. This is what medium plus tannin feels like. Just kind of help you calibrate your senses. Like there's quite a bit here.
Yeah, this we said medium on the alcohol. Not too heavy.
Oh my God. Blah. That's a lot of tannin.
The body is confusing to me because it tastes quite light despite the color.
Yeah.
So I would say medium on the high end.
Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Sorry?
This is like the body's where I get confused here. I think because there's just so much extraction. Like this, obviously, they spend more time sitting it on the skins and stems here. That all that tannin, all of that. Hold on.
I still think it's quite light though.
Like last week's was light, but I don't know. It's got some weight here. I want to call this medium plus, but it's like right really in that border, like medium plus for me here for this thing. But yeah, like it's not squarely medium plus, but yeah, high end of medium, but medium, lower end of medium plus, it's like somewhere in there for body.
It does have a
alcohol,
move.
oh, sorry, did we talk about alcohol?
Yes, I said medium.
Medium.
I think it's 13.
11%. Okay, yeah. 11%. Again, that's pretty low for Casprosa. You can see Casprosa getting up to like 13. Again, but this is a Fiorini style. They just like to pull back some of the stuff that don't want to be really blown out. So, which is what I appreciate. So with the 11%, I mean, we're talking about like lower end of medium, higher than medium minus. So if you even call this medium minus, that's totally fine. But to me, yeah, this is clocking in right around what I would expect to be like medium, 12%, something like that.
Got it.
Mousse.
Yes, I would call this, I mean, you know how I feel about bubbles, but I think this is creamy.
Yeah, I'll call this creamy as well. It's not like super delicate like you would expect from champagne because it just hasn't spent that much time on it, right? Like it is still a traditional method and all of that, but it's like a very youthful cava. You know, it just hasn't spent enough time in bottles under pressure for all the bubbles to really dissolve in. So yeah, I won't call this delicate quite yet, but I'll call this creamy. Exactly. Flavor intensity.
Flavor intensity, I think this is medium. I don't think it's a medium plus. The tannins are, as you say, very gripping, and like I can totally pucker every time I have a sip of it, but I don't feel like this is a super medium plus or pronounced flavor intensity.
Yeah. My wine is also very cold. Like the fridge that I have in this hotel is fucking freezing. It's almost like everything else in there is almost frozen. So so while my wine is very cold, I'm seeing this as like a higher end of medium. So as this warms up, I can see this even entering to medium plus, but I don't think this is a shy wine at all. And it's not meant to be. Like it's just this level of extraction, like when there's this much kind of a inkiness, this level of tannin and all of that, it's hard for it to be pretty light because or in terms of intensity of flavor, just because it's just spending so much time on the juice and on the skin, so it's extracting all those kind of flavor and color and polyphenolic substance.
I would say looking at it, you would expect it to be bolder than it is.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah.
I don't disagree with anything that was on the nose. I mean, this is all black fruit to me.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit of red, but mostly sort of blackberry, definitely bramble, black cherry, black plum.
Yeah.
It's not like, you know.
Yeah, 100%. This is black, touch of violet, but yeah, it lives right here in the blackbird territory. How about all the like the non-fruit things? Like we talked about
I don't get a lot of anything really. I mean, and it's, to me, it's black fruit and tannin. So, I mean, you might be able to convince me as an like sort of on the aftertaste side, there's something slightly herbal, maybe like I don't know, hard to say. Maybe something slightly peppery, but it's very
to me
very faint
compared to the wines that we've had, particularly the second and third week. There's so much more of that kind of like herbaceous, like like the spice like oregano and things like that. There's like so much savory herbaceousness on this wine. And it reminds you so much of that like stem inclusion. Like, to me, I'm willing to bet money that there's stem included. Like this is a whole cluster thing because these kind of like spicy, herbaceous, savory notes on the wines usually I get when there's a stem inclusion. It's exactly what I get from this wine.
I get it more on the nose than I do on the palate.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, and that's what I like about it. Like there's just like really deep, inky, like black fruit and all of that. But on top of that, this like layer of like savoriness is what I really like. But I will also say one thing though, about what I noticed on the palate and because you can't smell this, is this is a very geeky term, but this is what wine people say, phenolic bitterness.
Yes.
So tannin. is basically tannin is a phenolics and tannin is bitter. So when there's a high level of tannin, you're going to find some level of bitterness. And there's definitely some bitterness here.
Yeah.
It also ties into kind of what Shannon was talking about, that kind of a cocoa powder, cocoa powder has got that bitterness as well. But if you kind of sit with it, like at the end, there's some bitterness to this wine. And it's not necessarily always bad to have bitterness. It's just a part of a balance, just different kind of a flavor profile, a different characteristic.
With the bubbles, my mouth is expecting it to finish a little sweet, and it does not.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, this wine is not sweet at all. This is bone dry. This shit is burly. Any secondary, tertiary, anything here?
I mean, something unidentifiable, which we just talked about, which is that sort of bitterness.
Yeah.
I don't get a lot of maybe like figgish.
Okay.
In the dry fruit category.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking about that.
Something on the nose that I can't taste on the palate, but maybe that's just me today.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I was saying there's some, for me, this wine has this kind of like a drying vibe to it. Like not everything's completely fresh. There's like a little bit of dried herbs, dry fruit. So that fig, raisin kind of a thing. That's totally ties it. So yeah.
Yep.
Cool. Length. How long do the flavors stick around?
Oh, this one's confusing to me because the tannins are so strong. I mean, that sticks with you.
Outside of tannins, we're talking about like flavors of the fruit, herbs, all the things.
I would say high end and medium, it stays with me. Again, the bubbles dilute that for me.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So, I mean, others may feel like it's longer, but to me, it's like once the bubbles have popped, all I can taste is the tannins on my palate.
Yeah, to me, this is like, again, my wine is very, very cold right now. But even then, like I'm just talking at like medium plus, high end of medium, lower end of medium plus. So somewhere in between there. This was literally, if this was actually a proper serving temperature, I'll probably call this medium plus. But right now, I'm tempted to call this medium. So somewhere around there. Cool.
Got it.
Take it home for us, Dave. How good is this?
Well, based on these evaluations, I would say between good and very good wine. It's got some length. It's complex for what it is. And that's from somebody who doesn't like bubbles very much. It's a beautiful looking wine. It smells lovely. It is better with food, as you say. So yeah, I think between good and very good. Yeah.
I mean, everything kind of lands up there medium to medium plus, right? Like it's balance in concentration wise, intensity wise, we call it medium to medium plus on the nose, medium to medium plus on the palate. Complexity wise, we say a bunch of stuff. I mean, it's mostly primary, but we say a bunch of stuff in the primary. So I'll call that medium, somewhere between medium plus as well. We call it black fruit. It's maybe some red, some violet, dried kind of herbs, some cocoa powder, some green kind of a stem inclusion. So all those things. So I call that medium to medium plus. And the length, we also call it medium to medium plus. Everything's kind of landing somewhere between medium to medium plus. So depending on your generosity, I would call this either very good or good. But given if this wine is a little bit warmer, I probably would have been a lot more on the very good. So I'm going to call this very good.
Okay.
Then would you age this or would you drink it now?
I don't know what you do with Lambrusco. Advise us on that. I mean, it's tannic enough.
Yeah.
The acid is hidden by the tannins to me.
Yeah.
It's got the complexity. It's certainly been made the proper way to be laid down, but I don't know how long a Lambrusco will hold on.
Yeah.
Tell me.
Exactly. I mean, with this amount of tannin, I do think this can age. Now, will this be better because it's been aged, right? Like, because as this wine ages, it's going to lose more of that freshness. Things are going to become more tertiary. It's going to be less fresh. The thing about what's incredible about this wine is kind of how complex, like Dave was saying, for what it is, how complex it is, and how much different layers and whether it be herbs and fruit and all those things they're spitting out. But once that kind of fresh black fruit is gone and everything turns into kind of really dried, non-fruit things, will this be enjoyable? I'm not sure. But if there were any Lambruscos to be aged, this one clearly has the structural backbone to age it. So given the level of tannin that this has, I would say, I don't know, probably it's not gonna probably won't fall apart for the next 3-5 years, but I will be I'll be scared to. I mean, it's not very expensive, so but yeah, I would not want to age this for very. I would say I'll drink this now. Maybe see what happens next 3 to 5 years, just to see how these kind of fruit notes change. And if it's going the right way, if you still like the kind of the really savoriness, maybe this becomes even savorier, and that's what you like about it, then that's fine. But in general, I am tempted to say it's probably better to drink it now, even though the tannin is ripping. Like this tannin will soften out with age, but just drink it with a lot of meat or a lot of cheese is what I would say. But cool. I know this is a hard one in terms of guessing the ageability, because David's totally right. Like with the Lambrusco, you don't often see aged Lambrusco because it's not meant to be that way. But if it was gonna be aged, you need something like this where it has that structure. So yeah. Any questions? Any disagreements?
Here's my question. So if you're a somm or a wine, how accessible is Lambrusco to people? Like if you put this on a menu in a restaurant,
yeah,
I know Italians like it from certain regions, but
yeah,
does this sell here? Like, is you going to get people buying Lambrusco?
Yeah, it's more than. You'd be surprised how popular Lambrusco is. It's not as. I also feel like there's a divide in the age. Like people of like my parents' generation age, I don't think they're the coming. Like Marty's not coming in ordering a bottle of Lambrusco.
Did not see it in the cellar, no.
Right. But the younger folks are much more inclined to drink Lambrusco. Like Lambrusco has become a lot more popular amongst the younger folks. I would say that divide is probably like, I don't know, 50. If you're like above 50, you're probably less likely to order Lambrusco. If you're under 50, under 45, you're probably more likely to order Lambrusco, would be kind of has been my empirical experience with the trying to sell Lambrusco in the past. Yeah, definitely much more of a young person's thing. But yeah, for a long time, I thought the Lambrusco was a hard thing to sell. I mean, still is not the most popular thing to sell, but yeah, so it was a challenging thing to sell. Let's put it that way.
Not to dominate the conversation, but I do have a funny story. We went to Umbria many years ago with my in-laws and my son, who is 4, I think. Now he's graduating from high school, so it was that long ago. And we bought a bottle of wine that I didn't really know in Umbria at a wine store, and we opened it, and it was, I'm pretty sure, Lambrusco. And I thought it was off because it was sparkling red. I had no idea what Lambrusco was.
Yeah.
So I took it back.
Yeah.
With my very limited Italian, tried to communicate why it is that we didn't like it.
Yeah.
They were very frustrated with me. So hilarious.
They're like these fucking Americans.
Lambrusco on. Well, I guess it does. So
yeah,
anyway, I didn't know what that meant, and so now I know, and I won't make.
Well, here we are. Here we are. Yeah. Any other questions? Comments? Disagreements? All right. Did everybody like this wine this week?
I did, but I could see how it would be better with food.
Yeah, this wine makes so much more sense with food. This is a rough one to drink on its own. Yeah.
Better than last week. I liked it.
You liked last week's better?
No, I like this one better than last week.
This one better than last week. Okay.
Me too.
More interesting.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
I for sure thought this one was going to split the room more than last week's, which is interesting. I thought last week was going to be more about like a crowd pleaser. Everybody's going to be like, yeah, this is delicious, it's fine. But it seems like last week was more of a polarizing wine, which is interesting. All right. How much do you think this wine is on a retail shelf? and how much would you be happy paying for this on a retail shelf? So think about that for a second. Last week, just as a point of reference, was $18 retail per bottle. Comes from a much younger vine, meant to be consumed young. This is much more savory, much more complex. Probably can even be aged. Yeah. So to me, the way I think about this wine is the way I think about like Negro. Like, you know, you may not like bitterness, but like some people, like that bitterness is what gives balance to the sweetness instead of acid is usually what you find in cocktails. But to me, the tannic bitterness that you find here is, I think, is a good kind of a balance point to, and all the herbaceousness that is a good balance point to that kind of really inky extracted black fruit that comes here. And that's what I find, what I like about this one.
Would you drink this with something spicy? No.
Perhaps. I mean, there's enough, depending on what that spice is. If it's like spicy as papaya salad, no. If it's like a spicy as, I don't know, lap or some sort of like a meat dish, probably. Yeah, we'll try that. Yeah, I think the protein is the key.
Tonight. We did grilled sausage and veggies, but it was like a what was the oil?
Chili oil.
Like a grilled in chili oil, and it was good. It was fine. It didn't clash.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's the richness of the protein. I think it just needs to have some protein to counterbalance that tannin. Like tannin on this thing is not a joke. For those of you who've been wondering what tannin felt like this is it. All right, so 2020, what's NFC?
No fucking clue.
Okay. 20, 25, 22, 29, 25. All right. It's all in the kind of a ballpark here. This would be $22 per bottle. So $4 more than last week's, you know. Very different kind of wine. Not necessarily that one is better than the other, but very different, you know. But it is definitely older vine, more complex, more shit going on. But yeah, there you go. There you go. Oh, and then obviously more labor intensive because it went through a traditional method instead of a Charmat method. So
I kind of feel like if you took a regular sparkling wine and added like some Fernet Branca to it, you'd end up with this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Add a shot of bitterness.
I can see that. Yeah.
Very Argentine of you.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of that kind of like the herbal Fernet bitterness kind of thing. Yeah, for sure. That's an excellent, actually. It's not even an analogy, but like a way to describe it. Yeah, I like that. It's like the Fernet of a Lambrusco. I like it. Did anybody else make something with this tonight? Did anybody pair this? I'd love to hear what worked and what didn't work. If you guys did.
I had some cheese with it. It was good to balance it a little bit.
Yeah. For sure.
I'm about to go get some cheese to eat with mine.
Shannon, especially because you have last week's wine and this week's wine side by side. I'd love to hear your opinion of it. Tasting it side by side.
Yeah, I thought I think now drinking last week's wine, it's been sitting in my glass for over an hour now. The bubbles have calmed down a little bit, and actually I'm really enjoying it. I think to me it was too much like drinking a soda at first. But I will say my mother-in-law, she hates red wine, and I had her try it, last week's wine, and she thought it was pretty good. She said the bubbles made it more enjoyable. But I think like for me, I do tend I'm not very picky. I do like big, bold red wines.
Yeah.
You know, like Sangiovese is my favorite. So I do really enjoy this week's wine. It's just so interesting to me. Like in the glass, it looks just like a still wine, and then you drink it and you've got those bubbles.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, if I got this as a still wine, I don't know how much I would enjoy this. Like this wine is a lot. Like it's just so deep and inky and tannic that if there was no something to kind of lift it, like a bubbles, like I don't know how much of this would be super enjoyable. Like this would be one of those things where like, this is food wine. Like you cannot
Yeah,
drink it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I will say, yeah, I enjoy drinking last week's wine on its own, just sipping it, but I'm gonna go see what I've got in my cheese drawer,
Yeah.
and see what goes with this week's.
Yeah. So
I feel like this would be good with I forgot who said sausage, but I made these like sausage burgers. You make like a burger patty out of sausage and then put like provolone cheese on it. I
yeah,
feel like this would go good with that.
totally. Absolutely. Yeah, anything with a like a season, like a herb spice seasoning that's fatty, that's meaty, like this would be fantastic. This would be fantastic. Like, people would laugh. They were like, pair honestly steak with the Lambrusco. They would think that's crazy, but like this, and that's the whole point. Like, I want to show that Lambrusco can range so widely in style that you can actually pair steak with Lambrusco.
Yeah.
This is a steak wine,
Yeah, this is a good one. I grew up with my best friend. She's from Italy. Like spoke no English when I met her when we were like 12 years old. And so I grew up going to dinners at her family's house, and they always had Lambrusco on the table for the kids, which I thought was hilarious. But yeah, I would be interested to see what she thinks of this one because it's so different from the Lambrusco that I know she's used to drinking.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, did everybody have a favorite of this month's bottle out of the four?
I didn't try week 2 yet,
Okay.
but I think I really enjoyed the first week's.
Yeah.
I think that one's I would probably say is my favorite so far.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost, I mean, I hate to say it, but it's almost a injustice to call that Lambrusco. I mean, it is Lambrusco, but like the way that guy treats his Lambrusco is more like champagne than it is
Yeah.
Lambrusco. So it's a very different outlier. It's just like both the first week and this week. So the first and the fourth week are kind of like the outliers in terms of what you would expect from Lambrusco. Second and third week are more kind of in line of what you would expect, but still showing different characters. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to show the extreme ends of it. Here's almost like a champagne-like, really delicate, aromatic, Sorbara Lambrusco on the first week. And then here comes this fucking brooding, burly, tannic, like rip your gum out, inky Lambrusco on the fourth week. And Lambrusco can range all of that. And that's the whole point of this month is that like it's not they're not just this, the pound juice that people think Lambrusco is. It can be quite different depending on how you get it. So
Yeah, I think this was a fun month. I had no idea there were so many different types of Lambrusco.
for those of you who live in DC and have been going to Brent Kroll's wine bar or his wine program, like Maxwell, he's been on a Lambrusco kind of a soap opera or Lambrusco kind of a mission for years. He's always been trying to get people to drink more Lambrusco. He's a big Lambrusco fan, so I can't take full credit for it, but there are other people who are also doing good work in terms of getting people to drink more different styles of Lambrusco in DC at least. So he still does a Lambrusco month every year. So if you guys are, if this month was a very interesting to you, for those of you who live in DC, you guys should go check out Brent's program at Maxwell when he does a Lambrusco month, because he will have like 18 different Lambruscos by the glass, which is pretty awesome. Oh, yeah, this one is a lot. This one is a lot. Do you want someone? Any other questions?
I feel like the alcohol should be so much higher.
Right? It just feels so big, but it's not.
Yeah.
I mean, oh, did anybody not like any one particular wine this month? They're like, I don't want to drink that bottle again, or was it one bottle? I'm really surprised that you guys like this bottle as much as you guys do, because I honestly thought there's going to be a lot more people that did not like this bottle. But
I just didn't love the bubbles from last week's bottle.
yeah, okay.
It was a little too much for me.
Aggressive.
But the flavor is really good.
That was aggressive. Yeah. Anyone else?
If you were doing steak with it, would you do like, I was thinking like London broil, like a not
Yeah.
Not like a high-end steak, like it's a
Yeah.
everyday, like a Tuesday night kind of a red meat.
London broil marinated in Italian dressing. Like
Yeah,
that.
maybe a skirt steak, just something that's like the low key.
Okay. I actually think this may be really good with like a carne asada tacos. Now that I'm like tasting it, I'm like, yeah, skirt steak, marinated with a lot of herbs like cilantro and different things. There's herbaceous elements in this wine. I think it may be quite good actually.
We were saying like an herby duck, like a roast
Duck.
with like
Yeah.
fat, and would also be pretty tasty.
Yeah. I usually tend to like duck with the red fruit driven wines, but yeah, I mean there's enough fruit here.
We just had this conversation. Like,
Yeah.
like, oh, I think more red fruit, but I think it with like the right rub on duck, this could also work really well.
Yeah, I mean classic, berries, marmalade, duck, that's like a thing. So for sure. For sure. Oof. I need some food. This one is hard to drink on its own.
Are there any like, I don't know a lot about Lambrusco. I guess like if you're just out, I mean, is there anything you should look for to guide you towards something that's better? Like that's part of it, is like more when it's good, I really like it, but when it's not good, it's pretty not good. So you just kind of gotta know, like many regions, you just kind of gotta know.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think that's it. You just kind of know some producers who do it well. Also, like we covered this in the first week for a little bit, but Emilia Romagna as a whole there are only like two DOCGs in the entire Emilia Romagna, which is one of the biggest regions in the whole thing. They're very lenient. Like it's not exactly the most quality focused region in general. And even Lambrusco, I mean, it's very loose. Like it's not so tightly regulated like other appellations. So the quality level can vary widely. So yeah, even more so than other regions, you probably have to do some homework about like which producer you like. Even within that, like last week and this week being the perfect example, like, let's say you're like, oh, you tasted last week's wine and you really liked it. So I'm like, I love Fiorini. And then next time you go out and you order this bottle of Fiorini, you'll be like, wait, what? Like this is a completely different wine. Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, with the Lambrusco particularly, there's really not something, even a label or appellation that will give you some sense of that. It's really, you just have to know. You just have to gotta do your homework. Ooh. Any other questions? All right. Well, in that case, I'm gonna turn off the recording.